White House resident Joe Biden is no friend to the UK, says British pundit Esther Krakue after Biden's disastrous London visit on the weekend, where Demented Joe patted King Charles on the back and affronted the monarch by addressing his royal guards while reviewing parade at Windsor Castle. The incompetent Biden regime has severely damaged the special relationship with the UK, America's closest ally in Europe, as became clear from the Withering Review's Old Yeller Got an Old Blighty. The king attempted to stop the confused WEF puppet from blathering at the Welsh guards at Windsor Castle, appearing to lose patience with the doddering fool, as Sky Australia noted. The world is still spinning, which means Joe Biden is still embarrassing the United States on the world stage, lambasted Sky News Australia host James McPherson. Everyone knows the royal guards speak to no one other than the king. Everyone knows that except Joe Biden, much to the king's dismay. Although Mr. Sunak insisted Britain's special relationship with the US remains stronger than ever, it is hard to escape the elephant in the room. The US president's dismissal of highly qualified British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace as the next head of NATO in favor of his preferred candidate, Germany's Ursula von der Leyen, shows just how out of touch Mr. Biden is, Krakue wrote. Krakue blasted Mean Joe for handpicking a candidate for NATO Secretary General who is the very definition of failing upwards. Her political career has gone from strength to strength, despite a string of lackluster performances. Her disastrous 6-year tenure as defense minister in Germany was characterized by low morale, negligence, cost-cutting and cronyism claims that saw the armed forces lose their effectiveness and combat readiness. When questioned about the allegations of cronyism leveled against her, she simply admitted that mistakes had been made. As German Defense Secretary 2013 to 2019, von der Leyen is personally responsible for the disastrous state of the German Bundeswehr, which infamously had to paint broomsticks black to substitute for .50 cal MGs on NATO maneuvers, and had target practice trainees shout, "bang," for lack of ammo. Donald Trump was the only president who called Germany out for not pulling their weight in NATO, to which Angela Merkel responded there are other ways than money of contributing to NATO. Von der Leyen engaged in a harebrained political campaign 2015 led by Soros-style NGOs against leading rifle maker Heckler & Koch, trying to dump 176.000 top-notch G36 assault rifles from the Bundeswehr for no reason. Heckler & Koch ultimately won the bogus lawsuit. Germany's 2015 order of 1,000 Puma APCs was delayed and downsized to 300 because of the lady minister's insistence they be fitted for pregnant soldiering persons. And finally, she was charged with embezzling hundreds of millions of euros for McKinsey consultants who could tell her how to do her job at a time when her son David worked at McKinsey. It's hard to imagine a more limp explanation of how consultants gained privileged access to ministry officials, allowing them to circumvent tender rules and win contracts worth millions of euros, Krakue blasted. Clearly, she would be a disaster for NATO at a time it needs strong, decisive leadership. In snubbing Britain, Mr. Biden apparently decided to overlook that, instead choosing to push a complete incompetent towards the top job when the very real threat from Russia is at its highest for decades. This obvious affront harks back to similar tantrums and petty comments made by US officials unhappy at the outcome of the Brexit vote, Krakue opined. It is this mean girl-style bullying that undermines the resilience of the UK-US special relationship. Moreover, President Biden has made a point of eroding UK-US relations at almost every given opportunity. His administration has not only dragged its feet on a trade deal with Britain, but his domineering approach towards the Northern Ireland Protocol has left much of Westminster reeling with distaste. His patronizing treatment of the UK as the naive little brother when it comes to matters of Brexit will not be forgotten. Most disastrous was Demented Joe's decision not to attend the King's coronation, Krakue wrote, sending former family babysitter and current First Lady Dr. Jill Biden instead. One would be forgiven for assuming his gaffes and displays of senility were reasons for his peculiar approach to diplomacy, Krakue chided. From falling downstairs to the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, and even admitting Putin is losing the war in Iraq, much of the international community holds its breath when President Biden takes center stage. Especially as our own PM, Rashid Sunak, as Mr. Biden once mispronounced him, is no stranger to the president's blunder himself. There is far more at stake than the US leader's slips, Krakue worries. He is torching delicate and long-standing diplomatic relationships built over the years. The president would do well to remember the importance of the special relationship. She points out the UK is arguably the US's closest ally, even after Biden boss Barack Obama's patronizing 2016 remarks that the UK is going to be in the back of the queue after Brexit. Obama's biggest donor George Soros spent £5.6 million to oppose Brexit, even though personally responsible for making sure the UK left the European currency mechanism after bragging about being the man who broke the Bank of England, 1992. It is worth remembering that the US is the largest source of foreign investment to the UK, Krakue penned, as well as the UK being the largest single foreign investor in the US. All of this is facilitated by our shared language, values, and democratic principles. White House resident Joe Biden should bear that in mind. Failing that, it is imperative Mr. Sunak reminds him by rising above such juvenile antics and keeping the special relationship alive. He must show it is bigger than this doddering nincompoop with his questionable Irish heritage if our historic good relations are to continue. That is diplomacy in action. For the rest of the British public, however, it is clear Biden is no friend to the UK.